Hey guys, it's here bringing you another video, and welcome to another kind of like Riot Preseason dev type video. The good thing is, I think from now on, we're probably going to get like kind of every 2 weeks or so, like kind of updates about what they're doing in preseason, but in a bit more detail each time. This time we're delving into the new Inspiration Tree Keystone First Strike, and the reason why I want to make a video about this specifically is and I know it wasn't the healthiest of RUNE, and I'm sure people who also enjoyed it would probably admit that. I do miss Kleptomancy, but also a bunch of my champions that I play or played used it. I'm a Gangplank player, I'm an Alawi player from time to time, and Ezreal is also one of my favourite AD carries. So Kleptomancy for me was really fun, and I know it wasn't healthy. Maybe they could have tinkered it instead of removing it, but obviously we got Omni Stone as its replacement, and I don't think I've ever taken Omni Stone, ever. And I know some people have place for it, and certain champions you can make it work more than others, but I'm also not a big fan of like an RNG random keystone giving keystone rune. I'm not a fan of it. So we're going to dive into it, because First Strike was, when I did my dev video that I explained all the changes, I'm not 100% that one, I got it correct perfectly. But when I've seen all the reaction of it, of people that do know what it is a bit of like, oh snap, that does seem quite strong. Like, even if they tone it down a bit from where it is even currently or initially, it does seem quite a pretty good rune. And it's not even a pretty good rune for like, everyone's like, oh my god, Gangplank. It's a pretty good rune for other champs too. Like, people are actually saying, what about Zoe? Zoe would land a bubble and everything, and then the big damage, you get gold income from that. Boom. So we'll see what Riot says about it, but let's dive into it. So, don't let the title fool you. This is your bi-weekly quick gameplay thoughts, so it's in that kind of domain. We just want to make sure everyone looking for preseason stuff can find it. Preseason 2022 is right around the corner, so of me recording this, I'll say you'll probably be getting this video in a few days' time. I have a lot of content in the pipes right now, but I'll slot this video in as a second video of the day somewhere in the next few days. But we're about 25 or so days until the season ends. So good luck on your kind of last little grind to see what rating you can end up with. I think we all kind of need that. But yeah, so it's right around the corner, and we're excited to introduce with a brand new Inspiration Tree Keystone First Strike. So a look at First Strike. The numbers below were what we shipped to PBE on the 19th, which obviously you can play with right now if you log into the PBE if you've got an account. They may already be out of date by the time this article goes live. So again, they write these articles. It's not like they write the article the morning and then release it in the afternoon. The way of a company is someone would have wrote this article maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, and then it would have had to go through a series of checks, changes, and then different people would have had to approve it. So this article could have been written 2 weeks ago, and that's why they're saying the numbers actually could be out of date. And they're obviously quoting the numbers here as well, which again, they may be different now, but damaging an enemy champion with an attack or an ability before they do, so you attack first, or within 0.25 seconds of start of combat, so you don't actually have to first strike, even though the name of it is First Strike, but literally at basically the same time, grants 5 gold, just straight up, and first strike for 3 seconds, causing your attacks and abilities to deal 12% bonus damage against all champions, and granting 100% melee and 70% ranged of bonus damage dealt as gold. So I think what this means, I think, is let's say you do 1,000 damage. Like, okay, basically what you're getting is you're not getting all the damage you do, you're not getting as gold. The 12% increase, what you're getting, the 12% increase in damage, you're getting that as gold. So whatever the increase of damage you got from the 12% buff, that's what you're getting. But like people said, like, imagine this was Zoe. Zoe can do 1,000 damage Q. You land a bubble on them, and then you go with a big Q. That combo with 12% increase, you'll probably be gaining a good 200-300 gold a time just doing that. Like, that is nuts. And again, the same thing with Gangplank. I'm presuming it's not just on a single target. It's going to be all AoE because it's all champions earlier on. So first strike, your ultimate will count as first strike. If there's a team fight in bot lane, it's a 4v4, but the top laners have stayed top. Gangplank ult is helping. And Gangplank ult can easily do 500-600 damage per target on 2, 3, 4 different targets. It's a lot of gold income. Yes, it's just that 12% increase that you're then getting as gold, but it's surprising amounts. Obviously, it's a cooldown on as 25 to 15 seconds. Zoe is the one that I'm scared of initially if this isn't calmed down, because Zoe can do this, her combo, the ultimate EQ kind of one-shot combo, literally every roughly 15 seconds. So that is scary, but I'm guessing it is going to have some type of changes, but we'll see. But First Strike is a new inspiration keystone that gives you a huge advantage when you strike an enemy champion first, or technically within a very short window time at the start of champion combat. In addition to the extra damage, the extra gold lets you reach item breakpoints at unexpected times. It's designed for players who want more strategic long-term output from their runes in addition to an immediate mechanical boost. Also has to be said, obviously taking the inspiration tree, it means you're not taking like other things. So the reason why I do like the sound of this on Gangplank is Gangplank, he doesn't do amazingly well, or like there aren't runes that perfectly suit him. Like I currently take Grasp of the Undying. They obviously nerfed it when they changed Gangplank recently for Gangplank. It's not perfect for him, but it works on him. There are other things that can work on Gangplank, but there's nothing like obvious. Gangplank is more of an item champion than a rune champion, and this is where this is perfect. It's the same why Gangplank used to take Kleptomancy. It's technically, it just worked on him because other runes didn't work either. And he got in gold, and he cares more about items than he does his rune, and that's what this is going to do too. Champions, the other thing I will say about the Zoe example, Zoe might miss out on Electrocute or Dark Harvest or whatever rune you kind of want to take. Zoe may miss those when it comes to being actually dealing a lot more damage, where I don't think Gangplank's missing his rune when it comes to damage, to be honest. So first, where are we now? To get the most out of it, you'll need to beat up your opponent in a test of reactions to get that initial hit and follow up as much damage as possible during the 3-second buff. Obviously, reminding everybody, the granting bonus damage dealt as gold is 100% for melee champions, 70% as range, so you won't be getting the full 12% into gold if you're a ranged champion. And obviously, it will be interesting how certain things are done. Like, I'm guessing Gangplank is a hybrid ranged melee champion technically. His auto attacks are melee, but his parlay, it's technically ranged, I think, now. And his ultimate, I would imagine they're going to code it and it's ranged for this. But still, you're getting a bunch of free gold for doing damage across the map. So the rune has been great for artillery champions who can land their spells first, as well for assassins who do their entire damage output within a short amount of time. But again, if you're an assassin, would you really want to take this over Electrocute or something like that? That's the trade-off. Why the inspiration tree? Okay, so this is the point. The inspiration tree is designed to be all about creative tools and rule bending. Many past inspiration keystones haven't really delivered on that and instead have become highly specific to particular champion synergies that didn't really fit the inspiration theme. You don't feel clever when you're simply doing what's always best for your champion after all, which is 99% of champions in League have basically one keystone that they take every game. Let's be honest. You also might notice we've historically shied away from putting damage options in the inspiration tree. That's because damage is a fairly standard output. It doesn't really come across as a rule-bending optimization, but we're bending our own rules. We're bending our own rules-bending rule a bit here for First Strike, because starting combat is a harder decision to make than the choices most of our other damage-focused runes ask of you. I mean, not really. Like, the champions that are gonna like this are all the ones already that pretty much start combat first anyway, I would say, personally. So yeah, evaluating whether you might initiate a suboptimal fight to ensure first strike versus letting an opponent poke it off you and forfeiting the ability to go on the offensive for at least 15 seconds because you wouldn't want to when it's on cooldown isn't a straightforward choice. Like, again, best example, because he's my boy, Gangplank, a barrel combo from quite a far range is going to proc first strike. So a risk like that needs an equivalent reward, and the increased damage you get is clear and appealing. We also hope the first strike will provide value to a broad range of players rather than a specific class. Some will benefit more from the burst damage, others will love it for the gold rewards, and still others will enjoy the intellectual puzzle of figuring out its most strategic use cases by delivering on multiple angles we hope to garner appeal to a wider audience. Obviously, I did remember a little while ago, I was like, oh, you know, you're going to be not getting Electrocute or Dark Harvest on some champions. Obviously, yeah, there is the 12% bonus damage you're getting in that time frame, which obviously that might be more damage actually than Electrocute would give, technically. So that is worth kind of noting. Maybe this is actually just really strong. More design thoughts. One concern with First Strike's design is its effects on mind share. When runes get too hard to track, they risk feeling like mini games that distract you from the real game that's going on. We've successfully reduced this in the past by making runes early lane interactions less influential, fleet footwork in the past, because its benefits are granted in gold and percentage damage. Much of First Strike's value is deferred until late in the game, where getting that first jump on your opponent is crucial regardless of rune choice. That is true. Like a 12% damage buff also at level 1 isn't going to be... You're not one-shotting somebody at that point in the game. You know, you can't. So that is partially true. We also incorporated our learnings from Kleptomancy, which... That's what I missed that rune. Klepto. Which was frustrating for enemy laners who would get poked to death with little opportunity to fight back. Champions who remained loyal to Kleptomancy only did so if they could benefit it from without taking damage in return, effectively getting to spin the consumables roulette for free every 2 seconds. First Strike not only forces you to engage, but also encourages you to commit to your engagements to get the real benefit, especially when it's a much longer cooldown. It'll give Ezreal a taste of that Lee syndrome when he lands a W Essence Flux rather than passively poking away with his Q the entire time. So that is true. It's different than Klepto, because Klepto, you got the benefit from the rune by just poking. This one, you have to poke first, and then to actually get the benefit, to get the actual big gold income and get the using the increased damage, you actually then have to fight the enemy champion. You can't just poke them and go, never mind. You'll only probably, like they said earlier, you'll get 5 gold, right? Like, if you literally just poke them, you'll get 5 gold, and that's it. It's not worth taking the rune at that point. 5 gold every 15 to 25 seconds is rubbish as a rune. So that is true. So there's that. And then the final bit is talking about Omni Stone. So yes, Omni Stone, I mentioned it earlier. I don't think I've ever taken it. It is getting removed. So with the introduction of First Strike, we're also removing Prototype Omni Stone, which never really found its place in most players' hearts. Unsurprisingly, because again, it's really RNG. Its rules and optimizations were too complex, and tinkering with it any further risked making it even harder to master. Again, how do you I don't like that phrasing in some ways, because how do you master RNG? This left, like, what good players did with this rune, you can't master it. You just saw what rune it gave you. Like, Bard players sometimes liked Omni Stone. It's like, oh, it's given me Dark Harvest, right, time to go aggressive. It's given me this rune, right, I'll roam now. Like, it was more reactionary upon what it's giving you, rather than technically mastering it. Where, like, you can master Electrocute by every single time it comes on cooldown, boom, you look for that combo 3 hit to get the Electrocute proc. It's a lot more simple and less RNG based. Right, so this left us in a tough spot where we couldn't safely buff it out of fear that it would become a standard in pro play, where obviously the understanding in the game does go up. While Prototype Omni Stone was a decent option for champions who didn't really love any one particular keystone, over time, most have discovered at least a couple that suits them probably better at least than Omni Stone. And for the players who want to opt out of keystones altogether, Unsealed Spellbook provides extra access to summoner spells, allowing users to spend their rune power budget in a different system entirely. So that's what it's saying. It's like, if you're not massive into keystones, you can get that one that gives you summoner spells instead. I guess fair enough. But there we go. So that is the first look at it. So they just say, so from the Summoner Rift team, we hope you enjoy the sneak peek into First Strike and the other preseason 2022 content we've announced this week. There's plenty more in store, and we're constantly monitoring, oh my god, I've got a dry mouth, the state of the game and listening to your feedback to make improvements to preseason beyond. So the one thing I will say, thank you very much. I think he was in the dev meeting I was in, I'm pretty sure. John Frank, I do remember the name. So some of you, to end the video, just thoughts about that, and then I'm actually going to go on to another thing when it comes to dev stuff, because obviously, for those that don't know, my dev video blew up a little bit recently and caused a little bit of a storm, but in a way that I didn't intend, because when I kind of made the dev video, I was saying it in a most of the time, a very neutral tone, just kind of explaining what I was told. But I'll get onto that point in a second, because I've actually had a little bit of communication with Riot since that happened. But just to give my thoughts about this, First Strike, I think it's cool. Again, as an old kleptomancy person, I like the idea of it. I'm just worried that this is going to be very strong, incredibly strong for a lot of champions. It's a lot of gold income potentially, and I just hope they keep on top of it. I do potentially also see it being nerfed. I could just nearly guarantee it's going to be nerfed as well, which it may already have been, I don't know. But let's get on to now the other thing. So the topic that blew up specifically was the whole, why is there so much damage in the game? And I got the answer, there's regional differences, and Riot themselves, in that meeting, they did name one region specifically, and they named China. I'm sure other regions also like high damage, like maybe Korea does as well. The one thing I just want to point out is I don't think that's a bad thing. It's what I've speculated for this entire time, but I got an official answer for it. And I don't think it's a bad thing, like, per se. Like, yes, I wish the damage would have been toned down, but what people, and I think some people even in my conversation don't understand, is the amount of more players that in those regions have, no wonder. Like, the last time we got something like an actual number kind of thing, it was something to do with, like, how many people watched Worlds alone, and it was over 100 million people. And it was something ridiculous, like 95 million were watching from China, and the rest of 5 million were from the rest of the world combined. America, Europe, everything. And it's very similar with the player number. They completely and utterly destroy us when it comes to the player number. It's not even close. Like, you could take NA, Europe, add them all together, and we still probably are not half of what China is. Maybe not even a quarter. So any company in the world is going to kind of tailor their product to where the biggest audience is. And maybe it'll change over time. There was a Riot reply to the whole thing that happened, and they did say, you know, we didn't say it won't change, because I kind of said in that video, I was like, oh, I know it's not going to change. I know it's not probably going to change in the near future. That's kind of what I wanted to say, and maybe I worded it poorly, because there's nothing in preseason so far that says it's going to change. Maybe throughout the next season, 2022, it's gonna. Maybe in 2023, it's gonna. I'm not saying it's never gonna change, but that is just the current way of it. But also in my dev meeting video, I mentioned in the first question that there was two main ones that I wanted answered. That one did get answered, the damage one, but the other one didn't really get answered. I do now have an official answer for it, because they reached out a few days later via my partner manager, and they watched the video. The dev team watched the video, or some of them at least, and they gave me an official answer to that. So I'm going to read it to you guys. And the question obviously was, do I feel it's a bad thing, basically, or it's a problem that Riot is giving champion level mechanics to items, to the new dragons, stuff like that? Like, shouldn't champion level mechanics stay as champion level mechanics? Is there a problem there? So the answer that I got was, and I will say, I don't know which dev answered this. My partner manager said, this is what one of the devs said. It would have been one of the top 4 ones that I had the meeting with. Was, sorry, my throat is very, very dry. It goes, no. So the flat out, they first go no, and obviously I'll give the explanation, but no, they don't think it's a problem. So no, I don't think it significantly diminishes individual champions. I don't think we can lock cool mechanics to be only specific to champions only. Certainly, we should respect that a champ meant to be particularly strong as X should remain relatively strong as X. For example that he gave is all camouflage champions have a lower camouflage radius, so like a detecting radius, than the camouflage zone from Chemtech Dragon. So their camo is strictly more powerful even in the zone, to say nothing of outside the zone. So that's the example I give. Again, he didn't touch upon obviously the Scion example. I think that is probably the worst, like the best example that is literally a champion mechanic. It's Scion's passive, but it's a stronger Scion's passive because you're gaining more damage done the lower health you are and stuff like that. So that is the answer though, is Riot doesn't see it as a problem. They don't want to feel that they have to lock cool mechanics behind just champions. They want to give cool mechanics to dragons. They want to give cool mechanics to items. So that's the official answer. So again, I personally disagree with it, but that's fine. Disagreements can happen. I prefer when it's just basic, more basic dragons, more basic items, and it's more about the champion gameplay, and that's why you're picking the champion you're wanting to play rather about the items that you're building. I value champions above everything else, where I personally think that Riot's direction in the league in the last year or two is... Well, I think champions were like priority #1 years ago when it came to balance and gameplay and everything. Items and then other things like dragons, they're kind of leveling them out more. And that is kind of, I think, what's happening. So there we go. It's amazing to be given these answers. I said a very big thank you for them watching the video, and they might be even watching this. I don't know. If you are, thank you. You know, they say in this article, literally right at the bottom, they are listening to feedback, which is amazing. Like, it truly, truly is. And if ever, I remember years ago when the mess of Dynamic Q came out, I had a few meetings with a head dev at the time, Sap Magic, who was an amazing dev. And they are open to feedback. And I know some devs can be a little bit controlling over their project, and that's not just in Riot, that's in the world. It's your kind of baby. You want to protect it. It's your idea. But it's really nice that Riot are open to people talking about it now. And I remember years ago, they had that kind of round table. Some of you may remember. I think Skara was there. G-Bay was there. I'd love for them to do that again, like properly. Like, I know obviously in recent times with a pandemic, you can't do that as much, but you can do it on online. You can do that in a Google Meets. Hell, it doesn't even have to be in a public forum. I'd love just to be chatting to the devs, and I'm not putting my foot in there going like, oh, I know what I'm talking about 24/7. I don't. Like, I personally just have interest in it. I did a degree in game design. I love the area of game design. After I'm a content creator, I'd love to work for Riot, to be honest. I really would, but I love this game, and I think all of us, and that's the main thing, we want to make it better. We want to be the best game it can be, and we all have different opinions of what that means, and that's the point. It's such a big community that, of course, there's going to be friction occasionally when change happens. So it's cool. So thank you very much for Riot to opening the conversation. It means a lot. But that is going to be it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this kind of first dev video since the big dev update video. If you did, do throw a like on the video, comment down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.